All right, everyone, welcome to our May meeting. I'm Khaled Hassan, I'll be happy to introduce our speaker in a moment, but first a few orders of business. One is we have a raffle today. Our guest speaker was gracious enough to demo his technique of grafting, and we have some fresh mango scions and some rootstock in the back. So we're passing out some raffle tickets now, and the winners will get to take their pick. We also have some mango signs. Any extras we'll send that off as well, and then we have also one stick of buddy tape as well. Next. So John mentioned that we've got some dried mangoes up here as well that we also be raffling off. I hope everyone's enjoying the refreshments. And just a few other items. We have our OC Fair coming up. And as some of you may know, that's a big volunteer opportunity for us to go out into the community and share our interests and expertise and hobby with the greater Orange County community. It is staffed entirely by volunteers, our booth is, and so we're looking for volunteers for the event. We have 3 shifts a day, and so we'll be passing out those sign-up sheets. And we're also looking for someone to step up and be a chair or co-chair for the fair. So if someone is interested in taking up a position, we'd love to have you on board. And we'll also have 2 other items. We have one of our members has showed me something really neat, an electronic pruner, which I've never seen before, but apparently works incredibly well. And last thing is let me have Martha step up.
And then I'll pass it off to Joan.
Okay.
Okay, hi everybody. I have this sign-up sheet. I want to just tell you a little bit about the fair. As Khaled said, we have 3 shifts a day. The fair closes at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and midnight on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we can close our booth at 9 o'clock on Wednesday and Thursday, at 10 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And those times are reflected on the sheets. We have 2 sign-up places for each shift, and then we have an additional 3rd place for people who are new or have never done it before, or would like to work with an experienced couple of people. So if you would not fill all 3 slots with experienced people, let's give the newbies a chance to sign up first. So anyway, we'll be passing that around. Second thing is the crate ferry is out of quarantine. So I have some crates up here if anybody is interested. And I'd like to know, are people interested in still getting crates? Great, because I have a lot. Also, that nice big white bucket there, John Marcelino has access to those on occasion. And are there any people here that would be interested in getting buckets? Also, great. Okay, just to let you know, those will be coming on a once in a while basis, and he'll let you know. If you want to let him know that you're interested, get in touch with John for the buckets, and I'll just be bringing crates to the meeting so that you can all take them as you want. And that's it for me. I will pass this on now to Joan Day, who is also our resident photographer. And she's gonna, oh, John? I'm sorry? Oh, I do. 1 second. Okay. One thing I'd forgotten to mention is the Propagation Committee. We have a great opportunity, and the slots are all filled because Those of you who haven't contacted me yet, it's too late for this one, but we are going to be going to Tom Waldron's and watch him do an air layer demonstration on his lychee tree. He's the one that donates beautiful lychees to us for the sale every year. And we get a chance to go see him in action. That's this coming Saturday. And the following Saturday, we are going to be having our regular propagation committee meeting at Norm's. And we're going to be planting seeds because we want to grow seeds for next year's sale and get going on growing things for the year after that. It's an ongoing process. If anybody is interested in coming to propagation committee, let me know. If you have not seen the notice in the bulletin, in the newsletter, and I can tell you all about it. So everybody's welcome. We have a potluck at the end of the session and a social time, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, here's Joan Day. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so at one of our propagation meetings, we brought tool. Well, it wasn't a propagation meeting, it was a meeting at the Great Park, and we were all supposed to bring our favorite tool. So we all brought them, and it was fun sharing. But my husband, he's always trying to make life easier for me. So he bought a tool for me for my birthday. And at first I thought, well, I'm not going to use it that much. But let me tell you, I have trimmed everything in my house, everything. So it's a DeWalt, it's battery operated. He bought me a set of batteries, but this is the smallest of the 3 batteries. We have DeWalt tools all over, but this one, I've trimmed everything in my house and I haven't even used the battery all the way. So it's really amazing. You have to make sure you don't cut your finger off though, so keep it out of the way. And I didn't want to bring the largest branch, but do you think it can cut this? Okay, well, I wouldn't bring it if it didn't, but. What about that bamboo? Okay, so we'll see, can it cut bamboo? That's really hard. It would be tiring to cut that whole thing, right? You want me to cut it?
Right after the node.
Okay,
So it can
right
be
there?
rooted.
Okay. It's the greatest thing. So if Father's Day is coming up and, well, they can use it if they want to cut more bamboo later. But anyway, it's got a safety on it. You have to put your finger on here, by the way. So you put your finger there and then you go like that. So it's cool. You can buy it online and have it delivered to Home Depot, or you can go to check which store has them in stock. My husband only found it in Corona. Well, it was a gift and I forgot to ask my husband how much it cost when I left. But I don't know, it's probably the tool only, like most DeWalt tools. You're buying just a tool. You have to buy the batteries separate, but it's worth it. It's a great tool.
Yeah, whoever the MC is, I'll hold it for him.
All right, so I am honored to present our speaker, Sumesh Bell. I first met Sumesh several years ago, just fortuitously. I was part of a very active online community just hunting for rare mangoes, and I was having a hard time getting some to take, and I was having a hard time with grafting. And I had contacted Sumesh. And I'd contacted Sumesh about his technique and getting some science from him. And he was kind enough to actually demonstrate in person for me. And from there, we started this friendship. And what I really love about Sumesh is he's very practical. He's focused. You know, he was one of the first things he told me was, you don't have space or time for 100 different things. So focus on the very best. That way you don't waste your time. And all the tips he gives are very practical because he's been there and he's done that. And he's also, he has a lot of very clever applications of things. So I learned my grafting technique, the modified side graft or side cleft graft from Sumesh. So I credit all that to him, and he introduced me to buddy tape. And I do think he has the honor of being the United States' foremost buddy tape distributor.
Not the whole US, California here.
So without further ado, so he's also an expert on cherimoyas. So the Bell cherimoya comes from his yard. And he's the only person I know who's grafted lychee onto longan and managed to get it to grow. So that is Mr. Sumesh Bell.
Hello, everyone. That's very nice of Khalid to say some good words. So, hello. So you guys all love gardening, I'm assuming. So, so Khalid said that the biggest interest that everybody here in chapter has in mangoes. So we'll dive right into it. Just wanted to credit Warren Liu, Frank, Pardo, Simon, and Khalid and myself. We've been working on this thing for past several years. So the original presentation was put together by Warren, and we all pitched in, and that was, I think he gave a presentation here somewhere, like that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And then we've been modifying it as we have found new things. So you'll get to see, you know, as we move forward. Next slide. So these are the topics that we would cover today. This one? Okay. Yeah, so these are the topics we'll cover today. I'm not gonna go read every single title here. So let's get going. So origin, as you all know, majority of the mangoes originated in India, in Asia. And to this day, they call the king of fruits over there. And, you know, from India, it got propagated towards South Asia. And now you have in Caribbean, and Florida is the biggest one here in US. In India, majority of our mangoes over there are mono-embryonic. So mono means the seed only has one embryo. And when you plant that, you only get one plant out of that. And through some genetic, you know, call it genetic growth or genetic modification, naturally, polyembryonic seeds started to crop up. Mostly they happened in Asia, in like China, Taiwan, Thailand, and all these places. Polyembryonic seed, if you plant, you will get about sometimes 2 or sometimes 15 plants come out of one seed, because there are very tiny embryos. I've seen some like as the size of a small bead, and they still turn into a plant. And yeah, so another thing about polyembryonic is most of these plants are going to be identical to the parent fruit. One would not be. And the one that's not is your lottery, because it could be really horrible, or it could be really price variety. It'll be 1 in 1,000. It'll be one of the better ones. Means it'll taste better than the parent and a completely different variant. So there's a lot of experiments that people have done in Florida, and here, Khalid, myself, and all of our group, we constantly plant polyembryonic seeds, and we look for that different variety that's going to crop up. And we are still experimenting, you know, what works for us here better. So climate. So mangoes are tropical, and they are also subtropical. You know, Southern California, we have very dry weather. So there are certain varieties that'll do good for us, and certain varieties won't work. So I'll just give you a little history. Like if you go to India and Pakistan, there are mangoes that grow in the desert areas where you don't get much rain. There is no humidity, and they do very well there. And if you take that and bring to Palm Springs, they'll do probably the same. But if you take from a tropical place and you plant that in Palm Springs, it'll be very hard for that mango to grow and survive, because it's not used to that weather. So, but mangoes work in every weather, every climate, but they're best are from zone 9B, 10A, 10B. anything outside this zone, it gets very difficult to manage. You have to, use the pots, you have to use greenhouse. So again, climate-wise, tolerance, these are listed here, 35 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I have lost trees when we hit 121. I think it was year before that. And then I have lost trees at below 32 also. But again, some are more tolerant than the others. There are steps you have to take. How do you protect them? Best way to protect during the frost is water very well if you can. Frost usually hits between 3 and 6 in the morning. So if you watered it well, your chances are the plant will survive. Another thing is mangoes grow slow here, so go dense planting. So more dense they are, they're protected from heat and dryness. So coastal climate, it's a little difficult here, especially in the SoCal. We're all considered coastal because of the June bloom we get fog every day. All these things stick on top of your leaves when they're young, and then they get fungus on it. There are ways to prevent that, but it's not very easy to grow mangoes here. You have to be very patient. Fruit characteristics. So what's most desirable is if you have less fiber and more flesh, soft, sweet pulp. The sweetness, again, anything below 16 bricks. Bricks is a standard there measure on how much sugar content there is. And below 16, I have found mangoes to be not very desirable. And then they could go as high as 32 or more. And I have personally tasted over 30, and it's a sugar bomb. You eat one slice and you literally go in shock, but you want to go back to it. And so there are different flavors of mangoes, believe me or not. There's tartness. There's a very big seed and less flesh. We have seen a seed kind of non-existent with huge mango. That's sweet tart is one of them. It's a polyembryonic mango. There's chalkiness. There's sometimes, some mangoes are chalky regardless of how much you ripe them. Some mangoes would be bitter towards the skin and some won't be. And that comes from the raisin. So more raisin there is, it's going to be bitter towards the skin. Jelly seed shouldn't be there. And this is like internal breakdown. Some mangoes, have that characteristic. And crunchiness, some mangoes you could eat green, like Namdok Mai. I think even lemon zest and sweet tart are not that sour if you eat when they're still green. Shape-wise, so they comes in all different shapes and sizes, and it's the result of the pollination. Some odd shape, that's all because of how it got pollinated, but majority of the time you'll have oblong shape. I've seen perfectly round like apple. And there's a perfect shape of a mango like a C, like a small little oblong. Even the color can vary from light yellow, orange, red, blue. If you go to Hawaii, you'll see those mangoes that have blue skin on the outside. There's white. So all kind, and again, the outside color not necessarily would represent if it's ripe or not. So every mango is unique to what color it will attain. So picking and ripening, that's another tricky thing. Every mango has its own timeline on when it would be ripe. And when we do tastings here locally with some of our friends, that's always a challenge. Our picking period is 15 days, and some ferment during that time frame, and some are still green and they never ripe. And some mangoes are one of the most difficult mango that I have experienced is peach cobbler. It's super delicious mango. And if you wait for it to ripe like normal mango, it'll be totally fermented on the inside. So you have to literally press hard. And if it gives a little bit, cut it open, very sweet orange flesh. and you'll enjoy it. It has a very thick skin, but that mango is very, very dicey in terms of when you should pick it. So you look at the shoulders; they should be fully grown, and if it gets a little bit of spotty, lightness on the color, that's ready to go. So, and also ripening, majority of the mangoes, let's say if you go to India, they're picked when they're really green, but shoulders are full, and they're ripened in newspaper wraps. And sometimes they use cow manure to cover it up, so there's a heat. And per what all the farmers there say, that gets you the most optimum sugars. If you ripe the mango on the tree completely, sometimes it turns bland also. So again, some mangoes do well on the tree ripening and some don't. Here, I haven't personally tried anything different than just take the mango and leave it on the counter and keep checking every day, and it's worked just fine for us. Oh, and also some of the mangoes in terms of ripening, some will ripen and go downhill very quickly, and some mangoes, especially like sweet tart, and there is a mango called triple sec in Florida. You can leave that on the counter and it could last you 4 or 5 weeks. The skin will shiver up completely. If you cut it, sorry. If you cut it, it'll still be nice and firm, and it gets more sweeter and sweeter. So again, every mango is different. It didn't break, did it? Thank you. Sorry about that. So any questions here on ripening? Anyone? No question? Okay. So flavor chart. This was the chart that Khalid, he visited Miami in 2018, and there was a whole group of people trying to sample and come up with their, opinion on what they found in the mango, their flavor profile. And you can see there's citrus flavor, you'll find peach flavor, there's a rose flavor, it comes from India. It's called gulab khas. You have coconut flavor, pineapple flavor, and we have most of these mangoes here in our yard, but hard to grow. Yeah. Tree characteristics. So one thing about mangoes is California, they grow very slow, and then besides being slow grower, they get diseases, a lot of them. They do very well in Florida where there's humid and a lot of rain throughout the year, versus California, it hardly rains here. We rely on the water from the municipal supply, and that has a lot of salts in it. And over time, your salts will cause your soil to become non-productive, and your tree might not survive it if you don't keep amending the soil with fertilizer, mulch, and make sure it's very rich all the time. So as you can see, higher altitudes, colder winters stunt the mango trees, especially here in California. Our weather is very dicey in terms of how it varies. Since January to now, and we were still seeing mid 40s, and we hit hundreds in January. So mangoes do well when the temperature gradually rises and it stays stable. The blooming period for mangoes here is between January through, call it late March, early April. In Florida, by that time, mangoes are already ripening. But here what happens is we get bloom and then we get hit with cold front. No bloom will survive and they end up dying. And then if there's no cold, we get hit with a rainstorm. The blooms will turn wet. And then when the sun comes out, and all of a sudden you see these get fungus on them. So if it's not one thing, it's another. So it's very, very hard work to grow mangoes here, but it's doable. We have some trees that are producing really well. The best thing you could do on a mango is try to keep it at a smaller height. As they age, they'll get bigger, but I think 10 to 15 feet would be the best height. Try to manage it. Most mangoes that come from Florida, they're also the same height. Some of the bigger ones, these were the old varieties, and people have moved on. Nobody likes Tommy Atkins anymore. Manila is also good, but it's not in the top tier range for us, at least for my taste. There are new varieties that, as we go through the slides, we'll explain those to you. So growth and fruiting habits. So there are, like I said, every mango is different. So their growth habits are also different. Some are very fast growers and very aggressive, and some are really slow. So we just listed some fast growers here: Valencia Pride, Manila, Sweet Tart, and these are considered Sweet Tart especially is, I would highly recommend if you can get either tree of that or a wood. Highly I recommend to graft. Your small tree could hold about 40, 50 mangoes. It's very productive, and it doesn't get any powdery mildew. So, and the slow growers, there's Pineapple Pleasure, Pina Colada, not listed here, is Gary, which is very slow. There's a, believe it or not, mango called Ice Cream. It's extremely slow. It'll grow maybe 6 or 8 inches a year here. In Florida, it grows maybe 3 times that speed. Some will set fruit regularly, some will skip a year, and some mangoes actually do crops twice a year. Pickering being one of them. It comes from South Asia. Poor fruiters. My favorite mango, believe me or not, is lemon zest, and I'm lucky if I get 2 or 3 out of that tree, because every time it blooms, it gets hit with powdery mildew, and blooms end up completely turning black and dies. And it tries to bloom again, and goes to 3 cycles, and then sometimes I get in a year nothing. I think my tree is not as big. Where we found this very successful is in Palm Springs. We have a friend called Gary, and he's created a little oasis and fountains and a little pond, a lot of lush green plants all around his mango trees. And he grows the slow growing Pina Colada fruits very well. Lemon zest, he never had any issues. Actually, he sent us a picture with 25 mangoes hanging in one branch, and he takes them to maturity. So it tells you weather plays a very big role. Indian varieties like Kesar and Amrapali, they're poor here, not because they're bad mangoes. They're exceptional in climate where they're grown. So if you were to grow that in a climate which matches their native climate from India, they'll do exceptionally well too. There's a mango we got from USDA in Florida from their repository. It's called Sindri. It's a mango from Pakistan, and it's supposedly their most expensive mango that they sell. Only elites can get their hands onto it. Florida consistently failed to fruit it. They had it for 10 years. They said they never got a fruit. We got wood here. We fruited the first year. And it did well, but it could not get that sugars because it comes from a desert climate. So it might do exceptionally well in Palm Springs climate. So let's talk about rootstock. So majority of the rootstock that you see in Florida, they use turpentine. And here in SoCal, we have mostly Manila. There's a nursery, they only supply Manila, and I think everybody thinks mango is a Manila mango, and or Kent. That's not true. Turpentine, from our experimenting here in like 10 years now, if you buy a tree from Florida, it'll become very leggy because it has a growth habit. I think the only conclusion we found is probably turpentine is in Florida is in wet peat. It's always moist, and the soil, they have high water table. Here we don't have that. So if you overwater turpentine, it might actually do better here. I had a peach cobbler tree, which I had a lot of water drips to it. It did very well. It was on a turpentine, no issues. And then some of the other ones, after 3 to 4 years, spending a lot of money and time, they ended up dying. They're disease prone. Here, for us, I think Manila, Ataulfo, Kent, all these are great if you want to grow a seedling for that. And if you're living in a house and you plan to live there long, and you're not planning to kind of move anytime soon, I would plant the seed in the garden right away and let that seed come up and graft onto it. What we have seen is it's very much more tolerant than anything because you have the taproot that's intact. That's what provides all the medicine cures for this mango, naturally. And in the pots, what you see, the taproot's either curled up or you cut it off, or nursery, when they ship it to you, they cut that taproot off. And so that's why you have all these diseases. We'll talk about that down the slides. So this is the picture that Khalid brought up from his garden. As you can see, some mangoes like to fruit, several fruitlets on one panicle, and while others will have multiple panicles, but maybe only one will have one single fruit hanging off of them. But that's the nature of these varieties. I mean, you can't change the outcome of what you get, and that's why we'll talk like sweet tart. I would recommend it. It fruits heavily and it holds very well. Another mango that holds very well is honey kiss. There's a list that we'll see next in our next slides. So these are the dwarf mango type varieties listed here. Julie, Alambrou, Benesan, Kerry, ice cream that I talked about, Fairchild, Namdak Maya, Pickering, Malika, Cogshell, Lesentia. Some of these I wouldn't even bother growing here. I've tried ice cream, Kerry, Fairchild, and Pickering and Malika. They did not do well for me. After 5 years, I got maybe a foot growth out of them. So, and then I didn't yank it because I love plants, but they on their own departed with getting diseased and things like that. Namdak Mai, I would say, was very good grower for me. Not only it was a little aggressive, maybe it liked where it was, and it was fruiting very well too. Again, it talks about the sizes here. These 10 to 20 foot trees here are all seed grown. You go to La Habra or Santa Ana, you'll see some old trees that are tall, big. They're all grown from seeds. We're still under evaluation of what varieties from Florida works the best for us. Every year they come up with 3 or 4 new varieties. And we try to get our hands on them and try to grow here. Valencia Pride, Alfonso, I would not bother here. I know people from India, they brag and take pride in that mango. And like I said, what grows there doesn't grow here. Well, it'll fruit for you, but it doesn't have bricks. We found max bricks was like 14 or 15. It's not what the, having that just to say, oh, I got an Alfonso, but it doesn't taste good. And it has a lot of internal breakdown issues too. Lemon zest, I would definitely grow. You get 1 mango in 2 years, it's still going to be worth it. Trust me. That's my favorite mango, hands down. Soil, they need to be in well draining soils. In SoCal, we have a lot of rock, things. They need to allow for taproot growth. And again, if you're buying a plant from a nursery, the chances are you don't have taproot, you won't get it. So that's why the best thing you could do is plant from seed, and then you can graft onto it, but leave the planted seed to grow as well. Maybe you'll get a good variety out of it. Salty soils, again, salts come from, majority of the salts will come from your municipal water. So every year, if we get good 10 to 12 inches of rain, it washes the salts off. Some years, like this year, we got barely like 4 inches. I think mangoes are in trouble this year for us. And there are certain things you could do, like for it's a pH. You can use supplements for that. Sulfur being one of them. There's a fertilizer called Tiger Sulfur. It comes in small little granules. Excellent stuff. You could use in any of your fruit trees and do very well. Any question from anyone from chat? Yes. Yeah. Once. Yeah. So let's say, what was the question again? Mhm. Yeah, so the question was, if you let's say lemon zest grow into a huge tree and you want to cut it back to a manageable size, can you do that? Absolutely, you can do that. Pruning, I mean, Khalid's one, I always tell him your mango trees look like Frankenstein because he's chasing the fruits every year and at the expense of growth. The problem with grafted varieties here is the grafts bloom the very first time because we're in the bloom season and it's a grafting season. So what you see is bloom come off of graft, that graft's not going to make it. And if it grows, let's say one season a foot, next year it's going to bloom, it's going to die back again. So it's very, very difficult to manage. And Khalid knows what I'm talking about. He got a lot of trees from Florida. And I told him after June, cut all the blooms and fruits off. Give it a break. That year you'll get at least 3 or 4 flushes. Usually we get anywhere 3 to 5 flushes in a year. And imagine if 3 of those flushes are just blooms. Like some of these mangoes will go through 3 or 4 blooms in 4-month period. And by the time, if you're trying to hold one mango, you'll get that mango in late September or October. Well, growing season is gone. So your tree will never grow. And after 3 years, it'll get stunted, it'll die. Yes.
I can read it on the
Best
microphone.
variety for coastal?
Yeah,
I would-
best variety for coastal.
Yeah, so I would focus on the ones that don't have powdery mildew issues, number one. So lemon zest, don't even try. Because we're having issues in inland trying to grow that. Palm Springs is a great area. If you live in desert, highly recommended. But coastal, I have not seen sweet tart get, actually honeykiss, I have not seen powdery mildew on it. If there's a young leaf growth happening during a flush, and if you get fog, you will see powdery mildew on sweet tart as well. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the mangoes. There are like thousands of mangoes. I'll tell you what has worked great here. Venus is another one. La Habra climate, and I think coastal, it gets the coastal influence the same way. And Venus does great. It's a very large mango, gets to about 2 to 3 pounds, small seed and delicious mango. And we'll have a list here. We'll go through all of them. Any other question on that? Okay. So in-ground spacing for commercial, in Florida, they use 15 feet, or, and there's rows of, 20 to 30 feet between them. California, we really don't have a commercial farm other than Kent. I think it's in the desert area. No, Kate. The Kates come in late July or so, and they grow, but most of our mangoes come from Mexico or hobbyist gardeners like us and you guys. So, and not everybody has acreage to plant. And when I got into this thing 12, 13 years ago, I had the space, but I said, what can people do if you don't have space? So I tried to do cocktail trees. So what you do is you pair up a slow growing and a fast growing tree, keep them separate. Like all the fast growers you can combine into one tree and they'll all grow. And what you do is you manage, if something's growing faster, you prune more often. This way you could have 20 mango varieties on 4 trees if you can afford that 4 trees in your garden, versus having just 1 variety per tree. Then now you're missing out on the other varieties. And cocktail trees do well. Again, if your tree adapts to your local area climate and it establishes good roots, and you take good care of it, it'll do wonderful. So I had a tree I left behind when I sold my house. They had 20, one had 26 and one had 58 varieties on it. But the 58 one was suffering because it was getting beaten down with sun. And again, the issue was blooms like 3 to 4 times every time you go out there. Bloom in January, bloom in March, bloom in May. Right now, because of this cold front we had, I have my honeykiss. It's on the 4th bloom, and it dropped all the fruitlets from the past bloom. I don't know if it's the bloom sap that comes through. It doesn't like what's there. It just aborts that. or something. I don't know. I'm documenting the results of why it's doing it. So yeah, highly encourage here. You can go as close as 6 feet, 7 feet here and manage the height. Unless you planted a very aggressive mango here, to get a tree to get 20 feet tall, you'll have to wait 25 years maybe. They don't grow that tall at all. So potting soil, here are some of the things that work for us. Potted mangoes are even more difficult to manage than regular because you cannot always time the watering schedule. And when we get hit with heat wave, we say, oh, let's water the plant. Probably you end up killing because there's too much water. So it's hard to manage on that. But the good thing is, if you have a greenhouse, you can control the environment and somewhat provide their native climate if you can manage it and get some mangoes to produce better than the others. Here's the mix for this particular potting soil. Yeah. Another thing is planting like a larger tree. It says do not plant a pot that's too big. It's true, because if it's 25 gallon or bigger, you probably don't have root mass left in there. I wouldn't say it won't work. It will work, but you'll have to work hard on it, and you have to have a soil that drains very well. And you'll be relying mostly on the feeder roots that are on the top 6-8 inches. So you'll have to do a large hole, put it in, and put a lot of organic matter, so the roots can get more nutrients that way. I had a tree we got from Florida. It was a 10-foot tall peach cobbler with trunk size was almost 3 inches. We had them shipped to us, cut it down to 4-foot height. We planted, it survived, and it's producing very well. That was peach cobbler again. Yeah, and also when you buy a mango, you should don't go over 3 gallon, because I experienced 15-gallon mango plants that I bought, and the problem was, again, they established, but the dieback kicked in because of lack of root system. Smaller the plant, the better the chances it'll grow better roots. Any questions, anybody on this?
Yeah, we have a question of, can mango trees be espaliered against a block wall?
Yeah, the question is, can you grow mangoes next to the block wall? The answer is yes. Like any other tree, we all have backyards and we're limited to our property wall. So yeah, that's the perfect spot for you to grow it. But if it's facing west, it's going to take a lot of beating from the sun. And then you have to manage, how much of the growth goes to the neighbor's yard. But yeah, they'll work just fine.
Do you, when you pot up, do you have to tease the root system out so that it doesn't cycle around the inside of the pot?
When you take the potted plant and put in the ground? Bigger pot, yeah. So I'll give you my example. I grew some polyembryonic seeds from last season in a 4-inch square tubes. And so they stayed there for almost 9 months, and they grew about 8 to 10 inches. So when I took off the sleeves, I saw the taproot just curling all around. So I took the scissors and I cut the bottom 6 or 8 inches of the taproot off, because I was not going to plant in the ground. I was going to put in the bigger pot. You don't want that bigger root to continue to grow, because it's going to curl up. If I was going to put in the garden, I would not have cut that taproot. I would do a bigger hole and put it in, and it would do way better. But there's a difference though. Taproot plants will be more disease resistant, but without the taproot, if you're starting from a seed, they'll grow more vigorous because they're relying on feeder roots more.
There's another question online. Thoughts on fabric pots or sub-irrigated planting containers? The ones that have water that wick up from below.
Yeah, I have used the fabric pots. They work well. One of the best things about the fabric pots is you don't lose the soil from the, compared to like these plastic ones, you know, there's 4 holes, and you'll see constantly all the good stuff that worms create, and you know, it washes down the holes, right? Fabric pots don't have that issue, but the ground one, that's a great way to grow mangoes too, in a pot, yeah, because then you're not worried about constant watering issue, and you know, tree will uptake whatever the moisture it needs naturally.
And then there was a question kind of back to the original that was against the block wall. They're specifically asking about an espalier, so like a 2-dimensional form where you like spread it out wide.
Yeah, I mean, what you do is you cut the branch that growing towards the inward, and you can let the branches grow on the sideways. Yeah, the problem with mangoes is you don't want branch that is exposed. You want more leaves to cover all the branches, because when your sun beats down over 100-degree temperatures, you'll get sunburn on that branch. And then next thing is gummosis and formosis. There's like gummy substance starts to come out. That plant is diseased now. And it's caused from dryness and heat.
Does painting it with clay or a latex paint mix work?
On mangoes, I have tried everything. I mean, you'll see what chemicals and things that people have tried. Some work for some, but none of these things work for me. The only thing it worked for me was I had a bad gummosis on my stone fruit. So it was right at the base of the trunk. So I shaved the whole thing off and I sprayed with Abound. And then I painted this white and it survived. But mangoes, no, it didn't. At least I haven't found it to be successful.
Is it better to plant it in full sun or in filtered light?
Full sun.
Full sun.
Yeah, full sun, there's no problem. Although if you have, let's say, your yard, you know, east facing, which only gets you half a day, would not be susceptible to burn and diseases. And if it's west and south facing, they will be diseased. That's why for that area, I would go with the seed planting, and you have that resistance within the tree, and then you can let it grow as it'll be totally resistant. I had a lemon zest seed, which I got from Gary's when we went to tasting 8 years ago, and I grew that, and it turned into a beautiful tree. And I took the cuttings of that. It still hasn't fruited. It fruited for Frank last year, but somebody stole the fruit. It hasn't fruited on the mother tree that I have. Khalid has the cutting of that too. But what I saw, the difference was the mother tree, I got no disease, gummosis, powdery mildew, anthrax nose, nothing. But the grafted from the same tree on another one, they're all getting sick. So, you know, it proves the point why it's important for you to grow your own rootstock. Any other questions?
I have a Lancettea tree that often produces really large mangoes, but there's a problem with them. They tend to ripen unevenly. So some of it gets soft and then the rest of it is still not edible. Is this, am I the only one that sees this, or do other people see this with other varieties?
Do you know what mango that is? What mango variety?
Lancettea.
Lacentia. Yeah, the problem with that mango is it's huge. That mango could get to 7 or 8 pounds. So it's always a problem. If you let it ripe on the tree, the problem is it's going to deteriorate on the outside and it will not ripen on the inside. The best thing you should do is try it, which I learned my lesson. When the mango grows full shoulders, means at the shoulder where the panicle is attached, you'll start to see bumps form as the mango is maturing. And when you see a slight change in color, just pick it.
So you basically pick it early.
Pick it early, yes.
Good idea.
So I'm sure you guys are, yeah, sorry.
Our propagating group, we want to focus on growing mangoes. So we want to plant seeds. Can you talk about the best way to get your seeds to grow? It seems like I used to be able to get them to sprout much more easily than lately.
Yeah. So if you want to grow from seeds, only focus on polyembryonic, which is Manila. I have seen Kent also sometimes produce 2 or 3, but I would focus on Manila. It's easy to get, or Ataulfo, which is also polyembryonic. They're both aggressive growing. And how I do that is, let's say you ate the mango. First thing you do is you wash the pulp off and leave that on the counter for a day or two. Let the husk dry out a little bit. Then I take sharp shears and I cut one of the ends off and open the husk. If you try to do that when you have pulp on the outside, you'll cut your hand because it'll slip. And sometimes the husk is very, very hard shell. So once the husk is dried, you open the seed up, you take the seed, give it a slight wash. And again, that's my technique and everybody does differently. Then I take wet, moist paper towel and I wrap it in and I put in a sandwich bag and I put like close to on top of the refrigerator where there's some warm temperatures, or leave in the garage, because if you get mangoes in summertime, garage is always toasty. They love it. Leave it there. Check after 7 days and open it up carefully. When you open your paper towel, you'll see the root forming already. And if it's not forming and if the paper's turning black because it'll get mildew and fungus, just replace that with another moist towel, put it back in the seal. And once the roots are formed, you just plant that root side down and cover and leave the top part of the mango exposed and keep it in shade. And you will see this very quickly. The seedling will start growing.
Yeah, on the pots, I was wondering how long, you say that the pot is only temporary, so how long can you actually like leave it in the pot? Like if we bought it at the plant sale recently and it's like a 5-gallon or 15-gallon, how long can it be in there?
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation, if you start from seed, let's say you got a small, like you did in the paper towel, you got the seed, you want the smallest pot because it's manageable. And then as the tree gets, let's say it gets to about 6 to 8 inches, you want that out of and put into a 3-gallon. Give it some space to grow. Let the roots do what it wants to do. I would not go more than 3 or 5 gallon into a 15. If you plan on putting in the ground, I would put in the ground after the 3-gallon. I have even done the seed sprout when the roots are taken. I have put that directly in the ground and it's done much better that way. Because now you're not slowing down the growth process.
We seem to have gone off on a tangent about planting the seeds. Once we remove the seed from the husk, do we want to remove the coating from the seed?
If it's loose, like in case of polyembryonic, it's very easy. It just comes right off. Do it. If you have a monoembryonic seed, I try not to. I just leave it as is. Because imagine mangoes, the nature made this way, you throw the seed and it'll pop without even you removing the husk. So it grows. But to speed it up and ease of you trying to get the seedling growing quickly, this paper towel method is one of the best.
So I had one question. So out of the varieties that originated in India and are kind of used to more of the drier, hotter climates, are there any that seem to do very well just growing from seed and producing pretty similar crops to the original plant, or at least good fruit without having to graft of those?
Yeah, like from India to bring here, we haven't had luck to do that yet. However, because most of the mangoes that come here get radiated, and it kills the embryos because they don't want any diseases to come through. I bought Malika that we talked about that doesn't do very well here. I bought from the Indian store, great mango, by the way. It was super sweet, bricks hitting 26, 28. And it was like sweet tart, which it would not get mushy on the inside at all. I left that on the counter for 3 weeks and still firm flesh, delicious. I grew the seed and it grew, trust me. It grew and I have 3 branches. It's about 12 inches tall. I'm going to see what happens. but like I said, experimentation takes a while. You have to be very patient. So these are the terms for fertilizers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. I usually go balanced, all three to be the same. And when it comes to fertilizer, less is more, because our salts are already built up in the soil. It's already too harsh. And if you see your plant doing nice and good, don't fertilize at all. I wouldn't stay away from it. I have actually killed plants. They look good. I said, oh, they're doing great. Let me, give them some treat, and down it goes. So I would be very careful. And your potassium actually helps make the sweet much sweeter when they're ripening, and also calcium helps sugar, add more sugar to your fruit when it's maturing. The top part's getting cut off. I can't read that. So fertilizing schedule. So here in California, we only get rains during the winter time. So I would definitely do late fall. And then, and if it's mango, when your growing season gets done, you don't want to fertilize when they're growing and fruiting, because whatever you put in November, it'll continue to work till March, April, and you'll still have fruits. You don't want to keep fertilizing it. And then I personally only do one time, but I do mulch in summertime again, like a broken down, not mulch, but actually what you call it? What's the other thing when mulch? Compost. Sorry, yeah, I get compost, and because it adds more worms, and you get natural fertilizer happening very quickly. Again, less is more in fertilizing, as you know, and mangoes are very finicky about wrong stuff or anything that's too harsh, because they're already trying to fight a lot of other things that are affecting it, like dryness and heat and a lot of other stress. Again, the calcium deficiency, it says it could be by imbalance, which is true. And calcium helps, sweeter fruits also. So if your fruits take 6 months from fruitlet to maturity, I would say put calcium in month 4, and it'll definitely help. Fertilizer products, these are just some of the products listed. You guys can look through that we've used. What is that? Fertigation. What is that? Fertilization. Okay. Fertilization burn. Yeah, we just talked about it. So sure.
We had a question on what jelly seed was. I'm right here.
Yeah.
What jelly seed was on the previous slide.
So jelly seed is sometimes when you cut up on a mango, and you will see a perfect flesh, and then you'll see like gooey little section of the mango, or it's like broken down completely and it's flowing. That's called the jelly mango. Means it's instead of firming and ripening like the others, you'll get a soft nose, and that would be more pulpy. You can eat that. There's nothing wrong in it, but it's not like a chunky mango. Any question? No? So fertilization. So if you see when you walk out, it happened to me recently. I used very light fish emulsion in my pots, very light, and believe it or not, all mangoes, cherry moyas, and avocado leaves burn immediately, and they was very light. I used maybe 2 tablespoons in 5 gallon. It burned my 15 pots, and I thought I'm going to lose them, but now I see all those leaves falling, and the new growth's coming up. So that's why I said fertilization, less is more. My trees were doing great. I shouldn't have put any fertilizer. Watering, I do consistent, and when it gets summer, I do more. Especially, keep it consistent. But when you're hearing about the heat wave, your plants will lose more moisture through their leaves, and they'll droop. So I would do heavy watering before the heat wave, like set on a timer that waters at like 2 in the morning, and then throughout the day, you'll have good moisture to wake up. Otherwise, keeping it consistent is better. And when you have fruit, when you're trying to ripen it in the last, call it a month, I would cut water back. That'll result in much sweeter fruit. Plus, it will not break. Sometimes you'll see the mangoes, they split because I think it's either too much water or too much temperature variation, which you cannot control. So that's the perfect example of splitting. It's not the fault of mango, it's just the way either too much water got in, or we went from a 45 degree to 100 degree within 3 days, and that's what happens. Again, skip watering during the rains. I usually turn the sprinklers off early December, and then I don't turn them on until probably late February, because the temperatures are so low. If you watered once, or if it rained once or twice, that's more than enough moisture for it to last for at least a couple months. Plus, mangoes are going dormant and they're getting ready for the blooms. So watering, less is more in wintertime, and summertime, just keep it constant. So diseases and control. So Florida is prone to a lot of diseases in mangoes, and the same mangoes when we grow here, we find different results. If you have seen mangoes from Florida, you'll see the black spots form on them. Mango is perfectly inside, but outside they are ugly. But here in California, they're picture perfect. It's, weather plays a big role. There are some diseases here which are very prominent, and like I said, formosus and gummosis, and the main reason for that is either cross contamination. But once it gets in, if your tree already has less amount of leaves on them, it's going to die. I mean, the branch will literally shiver up, and you'll see some pictures on the next one. You can see how the leaves completely burn. That's the powdery mildew. Like it has a fresh growth, fog rolled in, and all of a sudden it gets powdery mildew on them, and then it'll start to turn, dry out and fall off. You can use sulfur. It helps. I tried sulfur, it didn't help. So, whatever. It works for some and doesn't work for some. So the best thing is, grow in a medium, and like you said, growing from seed will cure this issue. You're not relying on the rootstock that doesn't have any taproots anymore. So this is another picture for lemon zest, which is a disease magnet. It's got every disease on mango you can imagine. So it's like God, picked this one for experimentation. One of the best mangoes. Gary Zill, who created this variety in Florida, they actually yanked the entire thing because they got hit with black spot disease. So USDA told them to just completely remove it. So there's more pictures of powdery mildew. See how that bloom turned into white dust. Disease control. So that's the mango. That's how they are in Florida sometimes. But when you cut open, they're fine. But that's very prominent there. And again, use of fungicide. We have for Anthrax Nose. I try to limit what I spray on the garden, quite honestly. You would better off if you do what you call the tea you make, compost tea, and you spray that. That's more potent than any of these chemicals. Disease and control, the diebacks are prominent. You can see these pictures. I'm assuming some of these came from Khalid's yard. And we're listing, some of these things. When you see anything die back, I would cut it off and then find the green spot and go another 2 inches below that and seal that portion. Chances are you eliminated it. And I would do a fungicide treatment or that compost tea, spray it, and then hope that it didn't go all the way down. And some of the pictures you will see, like this one. This has happened to me, a perfectly healthy plant at night. Next day, within 24 hours, this is exactly how it looked. And there's nothing you can do. And again, this was grafted on a rootstock, which was in a pot. But if this was a good seedling, you wouldn't see this happen. Dot mango, that's again some of the pictures that our dear Khalid lost. Dieback must be managed. Like I said, remove anything. It goes to anything, whether it's cherry moya or avocado or mango, especially between March and May, when you prune, you will see dieback happen. So, because it's either contamination happening, or weather is too dry and you have more bacterial and things around in your yard. That's when they'll catch more disease. Best thing is when you prune it, sealed with something.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you use any type of sanitization between trees or between cuts?
It is highly recommended you do that.
What do you recommend for sanitizing?
Yeah, very mild solution of bleach.
Mhm.
A few drops in a glass bowl, and just spray it. Otherwise, you're transferring disease from a sick plant to a healthy plant.
I noticed you didn't have Anthrax Nose down as a flower disease. Something I've identified as Anthrax Nose, maybe by mistake, bothers flowers. It's not the same as powdery mildew, but it's a disease that badly bothers the flowers. That is not Anthrax Nose?
That's it's called the mango malformation disease. If you get that, I would cut that branch completely out. Mango malformation will form the bloom. It'll never set the fruit. And it is very bad, because let's say you cut the branch off and you use that tool elsewhere, that plant will get that disease as well. And is it healthy to eat the food that comes out of it? I found no issues, but it stunts the plant. The branch will completely, get stunted and not grow. So you can read about mango malformation. It's called MMD. Yeah, MMD.
Got a mic coming.
For the powdery mildew, on the slide it says once you have it, basically there is no hope for recovery. Is that what
No.
it is?
No, powdery mildew is something that's caused by fog or moisture in the air. When your leaves are young, the moisture will sit on it and then it will become fungus on it. So powdery mildew is not a problem. It'll just kill the bloom. It'll kill some of those new growths. And as the fog dissipates and new growth starts, it'll come back. It's the Anthrax Nose, which is like a black, you'll see at the tip of the node where the leaves coming out, it'll start to turn black. That's Anthrax Nose. And that's a bad one, because it'll literally start going inside the stem. And when you see that, if you cut a branch, you open it and you'll see there's a different color on the inside of the bark. So it's kind of traveling downwards.
So is there any treatment for the powdery mildew, or just leave it alone?
The powdery mildew, like you can spray sulfur. That's what most of the people say they do, and it works for some. So these are some of the pictures of diebacks that we've experienced. So that was Khalid's tree. You can see on the left, nice canopy and all the, and then on the right, the whole thing was gone completely. He had to cut it off. Here's another more dieback. See that black thing? That's Anthrax Nose. Can you see that? So that it forms like a black at the node, and then it'll kill that branch. These are still fungal diseases. Root rot. I haven't seen that issue here unless you overwater them, and it happens more so in the pots than actually in the ground. So some of the controls is like have the good draining soil. If you have rocks, then maybe, lift your area in a pot, a couple feet, plant there and let the root go into the ground. We had some people in Phoenix that did that and it's very successful. So diseases and controlled. There's sooty mold. Again, it looks like Anthrax Nose on the top, but it's those little white bugs, and it creates like a little very sticky sap on it. So here are some of the measures you could take. Spraying with sulfur, neem. Be very careful with neem. It'll burn in summer. So on days like today when it's overcast, it's perfect time to spray with neem. So here's more. So this picture on the left is the MMD that I was talking about. Is that what you were saying? So the first two pictures, they're both mango malformation of the bloom. So here's some more bacterial diseases. Some pictures of those. And again, you said sanitation. Yeah, it's very important. More you take care of what, go from one plant to the other, rinse your tools and pruners and everything. Pests, California pests, we have so is there any link in the back, Khalid? I don't remember. Couple slides down. Okay. So there's more grasshopper. I mean, I haven't had any issues of pests other than this sooty mold, which is the white bug. And the only other pest, I would say, squirrels taking your mangoes away, and that's not fun ever. So there's yeah, you will also see this particular bug, sharpshooters. Again, using if you use organic pest control, that would be perfectly fine. There are several in the market that you can find, and they get rid of these things. Birds, possums, tree. Yeah, there's not much you could do about them. Flowering to fruit time frame. Florida, it's 3 to 4 months. Here, it's if for Frank, who is in La Habra, he gets fruiting early, and he gets some fruit set in February time frame, and he gets the fruit harvested in September, October. Where I was living, I would never get any fruitlets set until probably late April, early May, and they were still ripe at the same time. So heat drives the sizing of the fruit, not the time frame between them. So if you have a late, as long as you get the fruitlets formed in May, late May, you will still get a decent size fruit at the same time that somebody else got earlier. So flowers and pollination. There's male flowers. You'll see more of this in if you have MMD, that 99% it won't form any fruit. If it does, it'll just stay like that and not go any further. But here's the male and female ratio. 1% fruit success per panicle. So we have a lot of we're blessed here in SoCal. We have a lot of wildflowers, and we have abundance of bees, and that's why you should refrain from using chemicals, because once you do in your garden, you're eliminating all the natural pollinators. Fruit on a panicle, yeah. So you'll see these things on sweet tart and also honey kiss. They're very heavy producing varieties, and always do good. Pruning. Again, we don't get much growth here to begin with, and then okay, how much do I prune? The rule of thumb is, if your tree is growing well, don't prune early. but you still want to shape the tree into a nice canopy. So I don't let any branch grow more than 12 to 14 inches. And then I cut it off, and then I expose the leaf nodes, the top 3 nodes. So the new growth that comes up will be on the branch and not at the tip. Some people like tip pruning. I don't like that, because at the tip pruning, you might get 4 branches. And then what those branches do, it creates a weak point. And if you have fruits on any one of them, it'll snap, or wind will snap it. So these are some of the pictures for chasing more fruit than taking care of the trees. Guilty at charge. Again, goal should be, trees should be upright. Every time you have a lean, means it's going to take sun and it's going to attract more diseases. So more upright, stake it, and then after 2 months, the branch will harden off and it'll stay at that shape. And always try to manage it so the tree looks nice and beautiful. Because if you have branches hanging down, I mean, nothing should touch the ground other than the trunk that's coming up. Then you don't have bugs climbing up the tree either. So here you can take some pictures of, there are some excellent videos of people I put together for pruning, and Richard Campbell is a very well-renowned grower in Florida. So cyan preparation, it goes like there's a few important things in this. You can prepare the cyan, but if your rootstock where you're going to graft is not active and pushing sap, then that graft won't do anything. It'll stay dormant or die, or it'll take, after 2-3 months when it's optimum condition. So best thing is if you are in July is the best time frame for us to graft, because we don't get any clouds, rain, and our temperatures are consistent, over 60 degrees at night and over 90 in the day. So first thing you do is you cut the leaves off of the branch or that little thing, cyan that you want to harvest, and then leave it there depending on the temperature, how hot the days are. Between 5 to 8 days, you'll see the nodes swell up and the leaf node that was attached will fall off. You harvest that wood, you wrap it, and then you graft onto the seedling, because at that time, your constant sap is pushing into the tree and your cyan is also ready. So there's a demonstration about these. I like to graft a cyan that has no more than 3 nodes, leaf nodes. Anything more, you're just wasting that, because you'll only get to take from 1 or 2 nodes. So here's some write-up on cyan preparation, but I talked to it about it already. And if you have a cyan and you want to store, first thing is, wrap it well, place in a moist paper towel in a sandwich bag, and try not to put it in the refrigerator, and try to graft within 5 days max. Otherwise, it goes downhill the moment you cut it. So. Yep. Yeah, but from September through, yes. So he's saying for the grafting, most of the inland, it's July when it's optimum, but for the coast, it gets hot in September. Yeah, I mean, you can do that too, but from September to October, weather calms down quickly too. You want to be able to get at least 1 or 2 flushes out of it. So propagation, these are some of the techniques for grafting that pros have mastered over the years. Cleft, T-bud, side veneer, chipboard, bark, whip approach. Some people have done air layering too. My first mango tree from Florida was an air layer. Growing from seed, variety from seed not recommended. If you're chasing mango and if it's not polyembryonic, it's it's going to get you a mango that's as good as the parent. But if it's mono, then you'll be waiting 7 to 10 years to find out that it has so much fiber that you have to go to a dentist after eating that mango. So here are the graft different demonstrations, and again, those videos you took pictures of, you can go online and check them out too.
In the previous slide, if you could go back to the previous slide, what do you mean where it says growing variety from seed not recommended?
Well, if you don't have time, like some people are very, they want to have mango in 5 years or 3 years, right? Seeds usually will take 5 to 7 years to fruit. And that's a long time. People don't want to wait. So alternative is buying a smaller 3-gallon manila. In 5 years, it will be a good 8 feet tree. 5 to 6 years, it'll be a nice decent size. Versus from the seed will take longer, but one from the seed will not have the disease issues, and you'll get a variety, and it'll hold a lot more fruit than a grafted one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the industry that they don't want you to grow the seed. So for backyard gardeners, grow it. So these are the different grafting techniques. Again, there are so many YouTube videos you can go watch and follow along. Here's some more demonstration of grafting types. Continues on. This is a chipboard grafting. That's the bar graft. You only do that if you have a trunk or rootstock that's thicker than the scion itself. So you could do that. Works very well. And whip, I have never done it because I find some of the other ones much easier. Cleft and veneer, those are the two I commonly use all the time. And in July, it's 100% success rate, nearly. In this time, you'll get probably 50%. That's the approach graft where if you have a tree that's not doing well, it's from Florida, you plant either a seed or a smaller plant that's in like half a gallon, and you veneer to the trunk. And then once the things fuse up, you cut the root off of the other one, and it takes the energy from the new one. So here's the modifying your Florida mangoes for California. That's the Khalid put these slides together. That's some examples of approach grafts he may have done. Double rootstock. Our friend Simon in San Diego has experimented with this, and he found some good success. He's taking 2 seedlings when they're growing and fusing them together and putting the scion in the middle. That's the double rootstock. You'll see the picture right here. So there's two trunks coming from the base, and it's you put a scion on the top, and it took his way of thinking is like it gets more energy from two seeds, which is true. And that's the tree as it's grown after several months. So there are some problems with grafting. Like I said, our weather is less moisture, very little rain. So grafts have the tendency to push blooms if you graft in the bloom season. And if you graft in July, then it'll push some growth. But comes January, February, it'll push bloom again. So the only way you could avoid that is let it bloom, let it set some fruitlets. Comes May, you remove them. And then June, July, you'll get more growth out of it. After 2 to 3 seasons, you have enough growth on the tree, then it'll probably hold mangoes better. So there you go. So you don't be surprised when you graft and you get a fruit, bloom right away. It happens. So that's why we say don't graft before early July. So these are the seedlings. You can't even see the pictures here. Oh, there you go. So that's a polyembryonic mango. If you open up the seed, you'll see multiple small seeds in there. And I already discussed about all these early when I was talking. So these are just the slides you can follow along. So that's a polyembryonic mango that he left it in place, and they're like 4 different seedlings that popped up, turned into a good cluster. They're growing well, they're healthy, but it's close to the side bushes, right? So backside's not going to have any growth. It'll start leaning towards where the sun is. And you can see the difference. On the right, that's the tree that he purchased or grafted onto a seedling, I mean, a mature tree. And on the left is the seedling. Look at the difference in 4 years. So we talked about the turpentine, we talked about the rootstocks, and you know, best thing is grow your own from the seed. It will be disease resistant, and it's not going to cost you anything. Manila and Ataulfo, talked about that. Store-bought seed, same thing. They work the same way. If you grow a seed from a mango that came from Mexico, most probably it won't sprout because it's irrigated. They hot dip in the water and things like that. So these are the newer varieties. You guys want to take a picture of these? They're all, I consider, top tier, most of them. And you know, most of these we have tasted. We're growing some of them here. Like, you know, Honeykiss was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. It does very well for us here. Some of the other ones, not much, but they're all excellent mangoes. So where to buy the trees? He's got these listed, some of the nurseries here. And again, they have started to get from Florida, some of these nurseries. Exotica in San Diego definitely has, Invista has Florida trees. If you find something that's really nice and healthy, I would buy it. From the Florida, if you get a tree, get a big one, because these people, and they're not cheap. They're like $300 for one 5-gallon. So, and online, these are some of the you know, people in Florida who would ship it to you. And these are some of the, I don't have science, just so you know, not right now. Frank does, and in the future, maybe Khalid might have science too. These are the places you can take pictures, you can order science from. Alex in Florida actually is the best resource for any cyan you want. So here's some of the things where you can get the fruits. If you like sweet mangoes, hit the Indian store or Asian stores between right about now through probably July, and you'll start to see mangoes appear there. And again, the heat management, it's again, if you shape your tree well, and if it's growing into a nice canopy, you will not have this issue. It's when you're trying to chase a fruit quickly on a young tree, it'll get stunted. You don't have leaves, and in summer it bakes, and then all the diseases will kick in. Here's just some of the tips on growing some of the mangoes. These are some of the mangoes that we talked about. That's the lemon zest. That's one of the best if you get it to hold and get to maturity. There's a peach cobbler. Both these mangoes taste like orange. Very, very strong orange flavor. mandarin flavor, Venus. It's chalky, delicious. Does very well here. Cac, that's great mango, very sweet. Has a little coconut. You'll taste the coconut come through. Honey Kiss, that was from my garden 2 years ago. And you see the bricks meter was 29 point something. Sweet Tart, this one last year at Frank's was 35 bricks. Orange Sherbet, this is a seedling from Lemon Zest. Very, very good mango. Again, very strong orange flavor on this one too. These are some of the other varieties, and Pineapple Pleasure has a flavor profile of a pineapple, and Pina Colada literally has a coconut flavor in it. Pickering, same thing, coconut cream. But these are all great varieties. Again, not all would do well here.
Which variety is good for raw mangoes?
For raw, Nam Dok Mai. Yeah, Nam Dok Mai. It's sweet when it's green also. Oh, sour. Sour, I mean, for sour, you got to go with the, not Manila, but mono-embryonic varieties. And most mangoes are sour. There's only handful that are sweet when they're green and you can eat crunchy. Otherwise, most mangoes are sour. When they size up, but they're not heading towards maturity, they will be very sour. Here's some of the references listed here, resources. You can join these groups, online, and there's a lot of information. Is that it? All right. Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Can you grow mangoes on the slopes? The answer is yes, as long as it drains well. Go back. You have to start again. Okay, so so the question is, what does pruning every 12 inches mean? So when you're growing mango, small plant, and let's say one branch grows, you don't want to let that branch continue to grow more than 12 inches long. You want to cut between 12 and 15 inches so it can start branching further. Because anything that gets to 18 inches or more, it'll start to droop. Yeah, every plant. I mean, it's just not mangoes.
Question. I have a mango called Pineapple, but it's not Pineapple Pleasure from Florida. And I haven't heard of it. It was developed by a guy somewhere in Ventura, Santa Barbara County. He did like 6 special Southern California mangoes, and it kind of disappeared from anything I've read. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah. And in mangoes, how it works is, let's say you grow a mango from seed, you can name whatever you want to name it. So I read about it, but I never.
It's delicious.
Yeah. It might be. So people name, after whatever they want to call it. So
What I'm saying, do you know what happened to that
no,
group?
I don't follow. Yeah, sorry.
We'll only have time for maybe another couple questions, and we have to move on to the raffle and everything. So we'll do 2 last questions.
I'm going to probably catch heck for this, but I have never heard of double stone grafting. Could you just give a real quick synopsis of it?
So what you do is you take 2 seeds from the mango and you sprout them in one pot together. When the 2 shoots come up, you shave the inside of both the shoots and you take scion with a wedge cleft shape and you sandwich between them. So now you're getting the energy from 2 seeds as opposed to 1 seed.
Okay. There's a lot of references on internet you know, to that, but I've just never heard of it.
Yeah, well, it was done long time ago, but our friend Simon in San Diego, he experimented that and it worked out for him well. You're welcome.
All right, I think that wraps it up. Is there any last questions online? Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Prune your trees. When you prune the mango trees, do you prune them in a particular way to allow for airflow and ventilation? Do you have them in a vase shape or?
Yeah, I like to make a shape of a funnel. That means encourage your plant to grow low branches early. Don't wait for a mango tree to get this tall on a trunk and then make a canopy. I try to get it the first branching at 18 inches max to 24 inches. And then after that, follow the rule of 12 to 15 inches each branch and let it start to become like a nice bush. And if you do that, your tree will never get over 8 or 9 feet because you've trained it. I mean, you see that CRFG, they have done that to cherry moyas and stuff. I mean, how you prune, you can keep the shape.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Sumesh.
thank you. Thanks, everyone.